Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Pathfinder Lost Omens Gods and Magic book. This is one of the more recent releases for the Pathfinder 2nd edition role-playing game, and this is a book that I was actually really looking forward to as soon as it was announced. Some of my favorite books in my RPG collection are ones that revolve around the various deities of different campaign settings or game systems, so this was something that I was really looking forward to. And as someone who's not overly familiar with the original version of Pathfinder, knowledge of like the gods and what their portfolios are and sort of what they're about is something that's a little bit lost on me, but this was a book that I think will actually really honestly fix that. Now, one common complaint I have about some of the other deity-based books that I own is that in a lot of cases they become a glorified monster manual, where they just have the stats for the gods as if you're supposed to be facing off against them, and I've never really liked that. So is this book going to be any different? Well, we're going to flip through and we're going to see what is inside. So the first thing before I get to that, though, I do want to just say that this book was sent to me by Paizo for the purposes of doing this review. However, they are not paying for the video to be done, and they are not influencing what is being said in this video. They don't have they don't ask to look at it first before I upload it. So all the opinions expressed in these videos, as always, are 100% my own. So first, we'll just have a look at the back of the book here. And it says, "Test your convictions. In a land without fate and a world too often void of justice, it falls to the gods to make or break the people who call upon them for salvation, or draw their ire. Swear yourself to the might of the gods and the power of their causes, or reject their offerings and live a life that's yours and yours alone." Lost Omens God Magic provides details on major gods found in the Inner Sea region, including what forms their pleasure or wrath might take. It also presents rules for over 100 other deities and philosophies, so you can find the cause that best fits your convictions and take up weapons and magic in its services. So the book also retails for $39.99 US, and I think that kind of works out to around 45-ish Canadian. So, like I said, we'll just start flipping through it here. And I have to say, I love the cover art. Just a really beautiful looking cover there. Just fantastic stuff. And some of my actual favorite deities from this book are sort of represented right here on this front cover, which is pretty cool. So we have our table of contents. So we have the overview, the gods of the Inner Sea, demigods and other divinities, philosophies and spirituality, and then we get into our character options and our appendices. So one of the other things I will say in this book is there is a ton of fantastic art. Just really visually, just pleasing stuff to look at. Just, again, some great stuff here. The first thing we have is overview, sort of an explanation as to, what the role of the gods, why faith should be a part of the game. And then we got some rules elements, which includes alternate domains. One of the things that I actually really like is the splinter faith, which basically lets you take a sort of a domain ability that's not part of your deity's normal list. So it just says your faith in your deity is represented by in an extremely unusual way that some might call heretical. So you can kind of weave some story stuff into there, which I think is pretty cool. Let's see, when you select this feat, you should detail the fundamental tenets of your splinter faith, though it shouldn't affect the deity's edicts or anathema. Choose 4 domains. These domains must be chosen from among your deity's domains, your deity's alternate domains, and up to 1 domain that isn't on either list and isn't anathematic to your deity. So essentially, as long as you're not choosing something that's completely against your deity's teaching, you can actually take that 1 extra domain, which I think is just really cool thing to have there. And then with expanded domain initiate, is another feat that we have here. You have long venerated one of your deity's lesser known aspects. Select 1 domain from your deity's alternate domains, and you gain access to that at an initial domain spell for that domain. So just some cool stuff that they can do along with that as well. And then we have the new background, which is Raised by Belief. And I actually really like this background because if you're brought up either in a religious institution or a religious community, the deity that is worshipped there is something that can actually affect your attributes. So with this, you choose 2 ability boost. One is granted by the actual deity that you were brought up to worship, and then the other is a free ability boost. So that's really cool. You also get training in the associated skill with that deity, and you gain the assurance feat with that as well. So again, some really, really cool stuff here, and we're going to get into the deities themselves. I'm not going to go through every single one in detail, but the first thing I noticed as soon as I opened this book up is that there's no stat blocks, which for me is a huge selling point because it's more about the faiths and how they are presented and how they are practiced than just having a powerful monster for the players to go up against. So I have to say I really appreciate that. So we're just going to take a look at the stat block here. We'll zoom in a little bit. Okay, so the first thing we have here, we have the deity's name. So this is Abadar, the master of the first vault. And then underneath, he is lawful neutral, the god of cities, law, merchants, and wealth. It gives his realm as Acton and Axis in brackets. His allies are Osmodius, Bray, Astrael, Emode, Irori. I'm pronouncing these probably all horrifically wrong. Shaylin, Shizuru, and Taurog. That's the dwarven deity. Then we have their enemies. So we have Bismara, Lamashtu, Norgerber, and Rovagug. Again, apologize for the pronunciations, but these are fantasy names to begin with, so just cut me a little slack there. Their temples are banks, cathedrals, and courthouses, so they're not always typically like your standard church that you might think of. And actually, again, I really like that idea because it makes a lot of sense. This is the master of law and banking and things along those lines. So if you walk into a bank, then it would make sense that there would be a shrine to that god there. So I think that's really, really cool. The sacred animal is monkey, which, okay. Sacred colors are gold and silver, which makes sense. Divine ability is constitution or intelligence. So what that means, so the divine ability, that is for the Raised by Faith background. So if you choose that background, then you would have to choose either Constitution or Intelligence. In this case, all the different deities will have different selections, and its alternate domain is Duty. And then it gives you some information about sort of how the faith is practiced, as well as a little bit of information about the god itself, which is really great. One of my favorite aspects of this book would have to be the divine intercessions. So these can, if you gain the god's favor, or if you do things that are sort of defiant to the god, or you sort of catch its attention in a bad way, there's just some really cool stuff that we have here. So we have Boons and Curses. So if you're on the deity's good side, and if you're one of their practitioners, or particularly devout in your faith to that god, then there's some different benefits that you can possibly gain. So the minor boon for this one is Abadar warns his favorite against those who might unfairly take advantage. Once, when someone rolls a success on a deception check to lie maliciously to you and you alone, they get a critical failure instead. Abadar typically chooses to grant this boon in response to an extremely consequential to an extremely consequential lie. So again, it's really cool stuff there. The moderate boon is blesses all your enterprises, leading to financial success, as all your ventures always seem to work out. If you roll a critical failure at a check to earn income, you get a failure instead. If you roll a success to earn an income, you earn twice the usual amount of income. So that's the moderate boon. And then the major boon is your silver tongue is infallible, allowing you to reach a compromise if one is even remotely possible. Once per day, you know just what to offer to make a deal or broker a negotiation. If you offer your divinely inspired deal, you automatically receive a result of 20 plus your diplomacy modifier on your diplomacy check instead of rolling. This does not increase the degree of success like rolling a natural 20 would. If there is legitimately nothing you can offer to reach an agreement, you learn that and you don't expend your daily use of this boon. So those are the things you can get if you are on the deity's good graces. But if you're on the other side of that coin, we have curses that you can incur. So the minor curse is anytime you steal, illegally harm or kill another creature, or undermine a law-abiding officer or court, a symbol or word describing your crime appears on a visible spot on your skin. The symbol cannot be removed or hidden with makeup, though it can be covered by clothing. And it doesn't vanish until you make legal restitution for the crime, such as by serving your sentence. So it's kind of a neat little aspect of the game there. The moderate curse is Abadar curses all your enterprises lead to financial disaster, as your ventures always seem to fail. The result of your check to earn income is always 1 degree of success worse than what you rolled. So if you rolled a success, it becomes a failure. If you rolled a critical success, it becomes a success. If you rolled a failure, it becomes a critical failure. Which is sort of the opposite of the moderate boon. And then the major curse is you become honest to a fault. You constantly suffer the critical failure effect of Zone of Truth. Additionally, you are always offered the worst possible option in a bargain. And I just think that that's, again, with the with the boons and the curses, I think that that's a really just awesome mechanic to have. And it makes me want to incorporate the faiths more strongly into my games. So if someone like defaces a shrine of a god, for example, then they could earn one of these curses. Or if they, maybe just, again, these are just examples, but if they were to restore a shrine that had been defaced, or they do things that are in line with the god's tenets, then they can earn, a moderate or minor boon. It's just something I think is a really, really cool aspect. And then another nice little touch is that there's aphorisms. So they're sort of just turns of phrases or expressions that you could use if you're someone who worships the deity, or NPCs that worship this particular deity might use. So again, in Abadar's case, we have, by Abadar's gaze, the deal is sealed. So when a negotiation is agreed upon and finalized, the initiating party often utters this phrase to indicate negotiations are over. This is often shortened to just by Abadar's gaze or the deal is sealed. Attempts to alter the deal after the phrase is spoken are generally frowned upon. So in the bold, it gives you the expression, and then afterwards it gives you sort of what it means. From Abadar's vault, this phrase describes a product of high quality, but it's usually considered hyperbole. Conversely, saying something is not worthy of Abadar's vault usually implies functional but mediocre crafting. And then the last one here says, so it is judged. This is a standard conclusion to official legal verdicts or other court proceedings. Some followers may use this phrase when seemingly random events work in favor of what they believe is justice. So again, just really, really nice touches there for all of the and for all the major deities in this book. This is sort of the format that it takes. So we have Abadar, and then we have Osmodius. Like I said, I don't want to go through all of these gods' details, but I do love the Osmodius one sort of in particular. So the boons here, the minor boon is pleased by your talent for manipulation. Osmodius amplifies your skills. Once when you fail a diplomacy check to make a significant or consequential request, you can cast suggestion on the target of your request, suggesting the same course of action, and this is a divine innate spell. The moderate boon is your eyes glow red like embers and your skin takes on a crimson tone. You gain dark vision and fire resistance 5. The major boon, Osmodius, helps you enforce your bargains and contracts. When a creature enters a bargain or contract with you, uncoerced of its own free will, it can't voluntarily violate its side of the bargain as long as you uphold your side. You can always choose to violate the bargain yourself, but if you do, the creature is no longer bound to fulfill its part. And then the curses. So the minor curse is Osmodius' flames burn you with great malice. You gain weakness 5 to fire. The major curse is Osmodius forces your compliance. You can't voluntarily back out of an agreement or contract or go back on your word, though you only need to follow the letter of the agreement and not the spirit. I think that could be a fun one to work with as well. And then the major curse is Asmodeus has taken note of the chaos you have wrought. You receive an ancient wound that feels older than time itself. You are permanently drained 4, and nothing short of another intercession can remove the condition. Your wound aches fiercely whenever you perform a particularly chaotic act, causing you to become sickened 1. So that one's pretty bad. But I love the boons and the curses here. I think it's just an amazing touch to this book. So, like I said, we'll just go through the other deities here. Oh, I guess we can aim that up a little bit here. So this is Calistria, the Savored Sting, a chaotic neutral goddess of lust, revenge, and trickery. I know one friend in particular who would probably make a champion or cleric of this particular faith. Kaelin, another deity I absolutely love. So this is referred to as the accidental god. So this is an ascended mortal, and he just likes to drink. It's sort of his thing. His holy symbol is a metal tankard. So just, again, cool stuff there. The temple would be an inn, tavern, or orphanage. The implication being that he was originally an orphan as well. So, like, again, I'm not going to go through everything, but just his minor boon alone is great. Helps you recover from a night of carousing. While you still get drunk and otherwise experience the effect of alcohol, you are not hungover the next morning. So, again, just really cool stuff there. And then we have Desna. Eristal, Gorum, Gosrith, or Gosre, Emode, and again, if I'm pronouncing these wrong, I do apologize, but I'm doing the best that I can. Irori, Lamash too, so that's the one that we saw on the artwork at the beginning of the book. Nethys is another deity that I actually really like as well. Along with Norgerber, sort of an unusual name, but a very sort of intimidating god. So I really like this one as well. This is one that I would probably focus a campaign villain around. And we have Pharasma, the neutral goddess of birth, death, fate, prophecy, and time. And Rovagug. Again, I'm probably butchering that, and I do apologize. But the rough beast, Sarenrae, Shaelin, and then we have Taurog the Dwarf God. I actually think that he's really nice looking. This one is another goddess that I would immediately want to start basing some adventures off of. So this is Urgathau, or again, probably pronouncing that horribly wrong. But the Pallid Princess, and just the artwork of like the skeletal lower torso, and like the necrotic flesh up on her upper torso, just such a cool looking deity that I immediately want to start figuring ways to incorporate it. So some awesome stuff there. And now so those are the major deities, and now we have sort of some more minor deities that are in play in the region as well. So sort of similar, although they don't go through with like the boons or the curses, but we still get information about them, including their alignments, the divine font. So if they grant heal or harm, which is usually based on their alignment. Divine ability, again, is tied to the raised by faith, also gives the skill, their domains, and their spell list. Along with their edicts, anathema, and their favored weapon, as well as some stat information for if you use the avatar spell, which I'm actually not too familiar with because I'm still running like very low level stuff. So those are spells that I haven't looked at yet, but this gives you a whole list of those as well. And again, just fantastic artwork throughout all of these. So there's just a lot of really awesome deities to sort of use to just flesh things out a little bit. And I think it'd be kind of nice to actually use some of these more minor ones in certain villages or settlements, just to have that sort of diversity, I think. So it's not always just the standard ones that you might think of. And there's just a little bit of information on demigods and other divinities before we get into the arch. So here we have the archdevils and queens of the night. It would have been nice to have had artwork for all of them, but this is just sort of some very basic information. However, I will say it scores points in my book because it has Dagon, which is one of my all-time favorite creatures in any role-playing game. And then we have the Eldest. I think the Eldest are sort of like the Celestial version, if I recall correctly. Oh no, these might not be Celestial, sorry. I might be wrong there. So the gods abandoned by the first world. Okay, so the native beings of incredible power. So this, sorry, that's not the Celestials. But then we have elemental lords. Here we have the Celestials, the inferior lords. The horsemen, so the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Monitor demigods. And then one of my favorite sections in this book, outer gods and great old ones. So we have Azathoth, Hastur, Nyarlathotep, Yog-Sothoth. Just one of my favorite parts for reasons that you may know if you watched other videos on this channel. But it's a really cool touch to have those in there. And it's funny to see stuff like that now, considering the legal issues that happened with printing those very same names in much older deity-focused books. So it's kind of cool to see that there. And then we get into pantheons. So the dwarf pantheon, elven pantheon. So these are like the philosophies or spirituality. So this isn't necessarily dedicated to one particular god, but like a collection or a concept sort of thing. We also have some organizations like the Esoteric Order of the Palatine Eye. So you can use that as your focus for your worship, which is really cool. Gives you their areas of concern, alignments that they allow, the divine ability, again, if you're raised by faith. For your background, the divine skill to go along with that. It's edicts and anathema, along with information on how to join in the case of the order, as well as just some other really useful information to have as well. Whoop. Even a little bit of information on atheism, which is kind of a nice touch because that's not something that you normally see in books like this. And then we have our character options, so we have some feats and spells. A lot of the feats are sort of more geared towards champions or clerics, though there are some general ones that don't necessarily require that. So a nice little mix here. And it's also nice to see just some more general feats hitting the Pathfinder rule system. Because the ones in the core rulebook, just the general feats themselves, not the skill feats, but the general feats, are sort of it's not a huge list, so it's nice to have at least a few of those added into here as well. And of course we get a nice selection of new spells and information on some domains, including focus spells. A plague domain sounds really cool to use as I'm looking at this as a GM looking to design some encounters or adventures around. Then we get into some items and weapons. So we have martial weapons, some uncommon martial weapons, ranged weapons as well. I do like the Taurog silver anvil, which is basically just an anvil that you swing around. It's like on a chain, and you just swing it and you hurl it, sort of thing. Just really a lot of fun there. And then we get into our appendix. So this has different types of faiths again. So we have the ancient Osirian gods, which are kind of like the Egyptian gods, archdevils, demon lords, dwarf gods, eldest, elemental lords, elven gods, inferior lords, the horsemen, monitor, demigods, other gods, then outer gods. Queens of the Night, just a whole bunch of different options there. And then we get into our Glossary Index. So after flipping through this book, I have to say that this book is an example of how you do a deity-focused book the right way. And this is the standard that I think other RPGs, if they're going to release books of a similar concept, then this is the way that they should be doing it. It's not a focus on having a high-level monster to fight. It is information that you can use to make the faiths of the campaign world feel more fleshed out and real. It adds some depth and substance to your campaign world. So for me, that's the real benefit of this book, is just the amount of information that you can use to just create something a little bit interesting and maybe different than what you might see in other RPGs or other campaign worlds. I love the idea of having sort of unconventional places of worship, like a shrine to a god of law in a courthouse. Or the shrine to the accidental god being, in all of these bars and taverns. It's just, for me, it just adds that nice little level of, it's sort of, again, realism, because, if you think about it, it makes sense for there to be shrines to these gods in establishments or, buildings that sort of fit their purpose. And part of me feels kind of bad that I never thought of doing that before myself. It's just something that seems so logical, but I've never really done it in any of my games. But now that's something that I really want to make, a strong use of. And it's all because of reading this book. I love the Raised by Faith background. I think that that's, again, a really cool way of fleshing out your character. You could be raised by, even if you're raised by a faith that you sort of eventually turn your back on, which, again, has its own story implications, it's still just a really cool feat to have, or background to have. I also love the feat where you sort of are almost heretical in your worship of a particular deity, and you sort of choose an aspect that isn't something that people would normally associate with it, but you still get this, access to a unique domain, and it's just, again, really, really awesome stuff there. So I think there's just a ton of wonderful information in this book, and as I said, this is one of the titles that I was most excited about, though I feel like it kind of flew under the radar a little bit, at least in my area. I don't want to speak for, the world as a whole, but I know in my area, even people that were picking up all the books were completely unaware that this one was out until I took it to one of the games that I was running, and they had a chance to look at it, and by doing that, they, ended up ordering the book, which was great because it drove sales and it helped a local business. But this is one of those things that I think just got lost in the shuffle just a little bit between the other, like the campaign setting or the player's guide, and then the game mastery guide, which they're all really, really, fantastic products. But this is the one that I think overall is sort of the sleeper hit, and for me was the one that I was really looking the most forward to. So I'm glad that I finally have a chance to talk about it and share my thoughts with it. So I do want to thank Paizo for sending this to me, but I will say 100% for sure that even if they hadn't sent this to me, this is something that I would have absolutely not even hesitated to spend my own very limited resources on, but I absolutely would have picked this book up on my own regardless. So it's something that I think you should check out, especially if you are a game master and you want to add that nice little extra level of detail to your campaign worlds. There's a lot of stuff that you can use in here, and again, for me, just looking at the deities themselves, especially some of the evil ones, it just got me excited about designing a short adventure involving worshippers of the faith, or trying to incorporate, because so many times in other campaigns that, I've had players come across this shrine to an evil deity and they decide to mess with it. And now, if they do that, I might end up inflicting them with one of the minor curse or something like that. So I just so much potential in this book that I can find. So I can't recommend it enough. I think it's a wonderful purchase, and it would be a great addition to anyone's Pathfinder 2nd Edition collection, and I think it can be used in a lot of ways to add, again, that little bit of substance to the campaign world itself. So absolutely fantastic. I think it's worth every single penny that it costs to pick up. So let me know in the comments below if any of you have picked this book up, what your thoughts are on it, and what you've done to sort of incorporate some of the details and information contained here. into your own campaigns, because I would love to hear that. So I think the world of this book, it's one of my favorite Pathfinder 2nd Edition books of all the ones that I have so far, which is all of the hardcovers at least to come out at this point. So I'd love to hear how you've integrated it into your campaigns. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Take care.